So, Joe, you brought up a good point that when we take away this notion of freedom, it makes responsibility seem impossible. Because if there's no essential self or ego that controls the behavior of the body and our action in the world and our moral decisions, because moral decisions are always decisions that involve actions. We make our moral beliefs without having perfect knowledge of what we're doing, and yet we assume we can be free. To be free, we also have to be alienated from the truth because we can somehow go against the grain of the universe if we're free. We can disobey. That's why the law freedom dichotomy is really it's such a Judeo-Christian myth. As a myth in the sense that it's the foundation of a civilizational worldview, and it's the real base religion of our culture that we're never going to get rid of, no matter how much we reject Christianity. Atheism is still just as much attached to this myth of freedom versus law as Christianity was, and it's that entrenched in Western society. And recently, we've in the West really championed this idea of equality, and every individual person is equal because we're all blank slates, right? And we all start as human beings in this world as children in the same place, which is true in a sense. I think genes do tend to play a role in intelligence, but if you're a human being and you are raised in a nurturing environment around other intelligent people who communicate with you, and you are properly acculturated and exposed to a lot of ideas, and not only exposed to other people's ideas but encouraged to express your own ideas. you know Music wasn't mandatory for me in elementary school. Actually, it was mandatory for one year, but we didn't have to learn an instrument, like to really pick an instrument and then that was your specialty throughout your whole career. But we all learn how to use pencils, right? And that's just as much or at least it should be just as much a medium for artistic expression as playing a clarinet or a piano or a guitar or something. But we don't look at it that way, and so we learn to write like we read textbooks, which is just to repeat the thoughts of others, and we never, very few people are willing to venture into their own grammatical territory and actually start trying to um, re-engineer or recreate or poeticize language and just use it in a fresh way that hasn't been taught to you, but that you learned yourself. And so, anyways, back to equality. When we just naively say that every person is equal and that everyone deserves equal rights, I mean, that sounds great, and I'm not trying to say like that that's a bad idea, but it's just, I think, gone overboard. And when we get rid of the freedom law scenario and its novelty and habit, the idea of an individual ego being responsible for something disappears. But what doesn't disappear is your responsibility to realize the interconnectedness of everything. But then you're not equal anymore. You're not an equal ego. That's the whole thing with objectivism that bugs me. It's that it assumes that every person's state of consciousness is identical. Because if it's not identical, and subjectivity is this much more developmental type structure that isn't always in the same general place. And I'm sure objectivists would agree that a child's subjectivity is much different than an adult's subjectivity. But the adults don't agree about what subjectivity amounts to, what the ego actually is, and what perception actually allows us to experience. So the naive assumption that we're all equal egos, I don't think works anymore. And it's a difficult thing to toss out, because then all of a sudden it's legitimate to say, I'm at a higher stage of consciousness than you. And I don't know how you measure that, and I don't know if that's even a valuable notion to carry with you, or if we should actually start thinking that way, because that sounds scary to me, honestly. But I don't see how we avoid it. But maybe we avoid it. You brought up the metaphor of the body, the human body, and each organ does its specific job, right? So if each human being is just an organ in the greater body of the Gaian ecosystem, or the cosmos as a whole, we have a responsibility to play our role, what we were designed to do, what we're best at. We have to express our nature. And I was just listening to Shanti Deva, I think his name is. Um, I'll post a link to one of his videos, but he was talking about the difference between our pure unborn nature and our conditioned nature. And that we have to remember that even a Buddha is going to have a conditioned nature that they have to use to convey their enlightenment. Because whatever enlightenment is, we can say, yeah, okay, that unconditioned, unborn, eternal nature is the same for all Buddhas or all realized beings, but their nature, their individual personality, their way of conveying enlightenment is going to be totally different. Because the imagination itself is unconditioned, but the imagination is constantly being overcome by habit. And it's this habit novelty battle, really, but habit maintains a certain structural grasp on reality and keeps it generally pretty regular, which is why science is so, observational, empirical science is so successful. But at the same time, novelty is always giving it this extra creative oomph or spirit, or that doesn't allow us to predict what's going to happen next. It allows for there to be unconditioned consciousness, novelty, in a totally conditioned, habitual organism that's been formed based on the accumulation of adaptational habits through evolution. So basically, we have to realize that equality doesn't mean everybody's the same and should be entitled to the same jobs. We're all cells, and some of us are heart cells, and we express our emotions and bring people together on that level, and some of us are mind cells, and we express our thoughts and we bring people together on that level, and some of us are good workers, and we put structures and build homes and furniture, and that's what we're good at, so we should do that. We can't all be doing the same things.